sore point in Friday's Supreme Court ruling is what appears to be a miscarriage of justice in Plateau State. On the receiving end are legislators elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. My colleague Godfrey Adesanya tells us more about this.
Court has now upturned the grounds on which the appellate court had initially nullified their election. The Apex Court ruled that the Court of Appeal lacks jurisdiction to determine the validity of the nomination of candidates, which it says is an internal matter of a party and not one for any other party or its candidates to meddle into. It ruled as improper the order of the Plateau State High Court on the validity of the primary election and nomination of a candidate. The Apex Court affirmed that the internal workings of a political party can be a matter to be heard at the tribunal or the appeal court. The casualty list of those who were victims of the appeal court's decisions include former Senate Minority Leader Simon Mwadkwon, Plateau North, and Senator Napoleon Bali, Plateau South. The former Plateau State Governor Simon Lalong has since been sworn in as senator representing Plateau South after resigning as Minister of Labour. In the House of Representatives, 3 PDP members, Peter Giandeng, Musa Bagos, and Benny Lar, were affected. And all the 11 PDP members of the Plateau State House of Assembly suffered the same fate. All of those affected did not have the opportunity of a review by the Supreme Court as their cases terminated at the Court of Appeal.
Well, to help us make sense of the Supreme Court judgments, especially in Plateau State, we have joining us in the studio the Secretary of the People's Redemption Party in Plateau State, Nanven Mamdam. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, sir.
Yeah, and joining us virtually from Jos, the Plateau State capital, is one of the sacked federal lawmakers who is a former member of the House of Representatives, Dachung Bagos. Thank you so much for joining us, Dachung.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Nigeria.
Yeah, so let me start with you, Dachung Bagos. It's really a tough time for politicians like you to actually understand what really happened. In the issue of the governorship elections, the Supreme Court has ruled differently from what the Court of Appeal ruled differently on the same matter. And of course, this has brought lots of divisions here and there, and people like you who lost out at the Court of Appeal are actually unhappy with what really went on. So I just want you to talk to us about what has led us to exactly where we are and your perception of the judgment between both courts.
Yeah, well, I won't say it's a tough one, but rather because of the governor's Supreme Court judgment yesterday, I would say all of us are happy people here on the plateau, especially the displaced legislators by the Court of Appeal, because we have been vindicated. So it was a sad one because this is from the beginning all that needs to be done, to be said by our lawyers at the tribunal, down to the appeal, to the appellate court, all was done. The facts were there, just like the Supreme Court has affirmed that the PDP repeated its Congress on the 25th of September 2021 because of the court order by Justice Gang. But all those facts and evidences were ignored by one part of the tribunal and the appeal court, because we have 3 tribunals on the plateau. Two teams of the tribunal affirmed that PDP has a structure on the plateau. We had a repeated Congress, but one of the tribunals said no, and the appeal court came and affirmed what one of the tribunals said, that all of us, that we are not legible. But yesterday, what has happened has really shown that we still have hope. Elders at the Supreme Court really drew the ears of justices of the Court of Appeal and those at the tribunal that, look, they need to give Nigerians hope, and which was the hope we got yesterday by affirming the governor a duly elected, a qualified candidate sponsored by the PDP, affirming that we had a repeated Congress on the Plateau. So this issue, as sad as it was, what I said again, we were happy yesterday. Solution going forward is what all of us are now looking for. That look, it's not longer about what you think or who you think you know to be able to make things go your way, but what does the law say?
All right.
So oftentimes at the National Assembly, we make the laws, but sometimes the justices interpret the law against the way it was made. The 2022 Electoral Act states most of these things clearly, that was affirmed by the Supreme Court yesterday. So going forward, because of what has happened with us and other legislators across the country, it's a further amendment that National Assembly cases should move to Supreme Court, so that we know that the Supreme Court has already made statements on so many issues and so many cases, and they will affirm what they have done according to their own judgment. So going forward, we will be looking at how National Assembly cases will go to the Supreme Court, because that is where we have elders that really know what the law is all about.
All right. That will be pushing too much to the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court is already crying about all of this. But I'll bring you in, Nanven. Talk to us about how the PRP initiated some of these court cases, which eventually terminated at the Court of Appeal for state constituency elections and then federal constituency elections, and then only for the governorship for us to have a different interpretation at the Supreme Court.
All right. Thank you for having me. First, I will start by congratulating Governor Caleb Mutfwang over his success at the Supreme Court. And I also congratulate Plateau people for finally having closure on this issue that has been that is the climax of the electoral process. We now have it settled who the chief executive officer of the state is, and we hope that they will hit the ground running on issues of governance. Now, having said that, I would like to lay a little background regarding how we got here. Shortly after the Electoral Act 2022 was signed, there was a by-election conducted in Jos, Basa Jos, no federal constituency precisely. We participated. We actually came second after the results were declared, and the PDP candidate was declared the winner. So we approached the tribunal at that time. The tribunal determined that PDP candidate was not qualified to run in that election. They appealed to the appeal court. The appeal court affirmed that judgment that they were not qualified, and that was how PRP got a member into the House of Reps to complete the last term. Now, coming into 2023, elections held again. And again, the PDP candidates won here and there. And the precedent that we had set in 2022 now became the bedrock upon which most of the candidates now approach the tribunal. Now, like the other guest said, rightly, there were two teams of panelists that handled the tribunals. And so one team actually interpreted the petition as a matter of qualification of candidates, which is a constitutional issue. The other team interpreted it as an issue of nomination, which then becomes an internal party affair to which external actors cannot interfere. That is why you see that at the tribunals we had two parallel judgments. But coming to the appeal court distilled the issues and interpreted the issue as an issue of qualification, and that was why it was able to determine that all the candidates of the PDP were not qualified, because the issue of qualification are constitutional issues, and as a constitutional issue, yes, it can be heard either at the pre-election stage, the election stage, or even the post-election stage. Even the Supreme Court have ruled on this issue on several occasions, and there are instances to that effect. And so for us, the judgment of the Supreme Court yesterday, again, brought the interpretation of nomination, not qualification, which was why they were able to strike out saying you don't have a business with the candidate of another party because it is an issue of nomination as their interpretation. Well, we are not faulting the interpretation of the Supreme Court. We're just making highlights here and there about regarding how the judgment has come out and how it is impacting most of the other actors. Well, for us in the PRP, we even have our own candidates pending, because because a rerun was declared in our own issue rather than outrightly declaring us who are the first runner-up as the winners, as stipulated by Section 136, subsection 2 of the Electoral Act, which says that if an election is nullified, the person with the next highest number of votes should be declared. Yes, so we were not declared. We were asked to go for a rerun, but we haven't even cast aspersions on those judgments. We've hit the ground running, putting our house together and seeing how we will launch and, of course, reclaim the mandate that we are so confident the people will give us in the rerun of February 3rd.
Okay, and I come back to you, Honorable Bagos. Let's talk about the implication of this judgment on the Plateau State House of Assembly, because we have about 8 members and then 15 are outstanding. What exactly is going to go on now? Is the PDP going to further seek maybe a constitutional interpretation of what should happen, or indeed the APC should also go ahead?
With what has happened yesterday at the Supreme Court, any issue regarding the issue of structure, the issue of nomination or qualification that has been taken to court on the plateau on the same ground, mind you, that all the issues of that have sacked the legislators of the plateau from National Assembly to the State House of Assembly down to even the governor at the appeal court was on the same ground. So as of yesterday, after the judgment, everything stands null and void. So because if it's on the same ground that the Supreme Court has given a verdict on the ground that all the legislators were sacked, which means all those actions were null and void. And that is why, for instance, if the PRP issue was taken, or of Musa Aga was taken to the Supreme Court,
but those judgments, sorry, if I may come in here, Honorable Bagos, those judgments, the Court of Appeal judgment came before the Supreme Court judgment. So is it based on the PDP's interpretation or your interpretation?
Whatsoever, going forward, any judgment that have to do with the issue of the structure or the issue of qualification, the issue of nomination that has bedeviled Plateau, the Supreme Court have settled this issue that it will now affect any other issue across the country. So we are now seeking for all possible legal means to see how this judgment will be interpreted or reviewed or whatever. But we are looking at it when we get the CTC of this judgment. But this judgment, because of the injustice that have been done to our people, we are looking at it in accordance to the judgment of yesterday. Mind you, that knowing very well from what the Supreme Court have said, with how the appeal court and even the tribunal has void the Electoral Act clearly, how we were able to amend the Electoral Act is that primaries of every election should be able to should take place 6 months before the general election. And within that 6 months, whether you have the issue of qualification, the issue of whatever, within the 6 months, you were supposed to handle and settle those issues at the High Court. And once that is being trashed, INEC will clear every candidate to contest for election. And if you check the statement of Justice Okoro yesterday, he said that this issue is supposed to have been dealt with even before the elections. Why are those issues being taken to the election tribunal? Election tribunal is supposed to handle issues that took place within and on the day of election, not pre-election matters, be it qualification, be it nomination, those were supposed to have taken and be handled by the High Court 6 months before the general election. That was why we amended.
All right, I'll just ask you to hold on.
But the tribunal to start delving into issues that's supposed to have been taken care of by the High Court, then it has gone out of its mandate, election tribunal.
All right.
That's what the Supreme Court interpreted yesterday.
All right, and I'll come back to my guest here. Nanven, what's the PRP's view about what's going to happen in the Plateau State House of Assembly now? Because, I mean, it's a tough one. You have those ones that were all declared by the Court of Appeal, and, you know, they are all awaiting their swearing into the State House of Assembly, and some of the PDP lawmakers are already. Because the governor needs some form of legislative protection. You can hear him from the PDP saying that the PDP is going to challenge all other previous judgment, because the Supreme Court's judgment is actually final. What's your view of all of this?
Well, we must look at these issues through the lenses of the law. For election petitions, there is a time frame that the law allows for those petitions to be heard. For the legislative houses, especially the federal reps, their ceiling is the appeal court. And the window for which, because the elections of the federal houses came before the gubernatorial, so their window has actually elapsed before we got to this point. So the possibility of even going back to review those judgments may create in itself further crisis with regards to the position of the law on these issues. For me, I think going forward, what we should be talking about is seeking out ways that we can avoid the reoccurrence of these issues. I'm happy he mentioned the issue of how the electoral law was formulated, or they arrived at some of the clauses in the law. For us, especially from my party's point of view, we believe that more electoral reforms are required. Some of these issues, as they come up, they continue to...
But you haven't really answered my question. The Plateau State House of Assembly.
Yes.
How is the governor and his party, how are they going to navigate all of this? Because, I mean, as it stands, the APC, if all those members declared by the Court of Appeal as one, in APC will be the leading party in the State House of Assembly. So what happens if they go to court now? Will there be some delay, or what exactly will be the way out of this situation?
Well, I think as it stands, the judgment that has been enforced at the appeal court stands. And it means that the APC has the majority in the House. And it is a democracy. There are instruments by which, causes are advanced in the democracy. The governor can give himself to lobbying, and all the other forms of instruments to ensure that he comes on the same page, because at this point now, I think we have gone past politicking. We are talking about governance. And so I think that it is about rallying around those people who obviously are going to be sworn in.
Not going to challenge their mandate.
Not going to challenge it, because it may not really amount to much, but you may be creating more issues around the issues that already exist. And I think that may not be good for governance. It's been 7 months already, and we've been going back and forth, and it's been taking its toll on governance. I think going further back and forth will take more toll on the people by impeding governance.
All right, and Honorable Bagos, let's talk about you personally. How do you feel after having received that Supreme Court judgment yesterday? You would have been in the House of Representatives if indeed that case was meant to have terminated at the Supreme Court. But here you are, having fallen victim to this. How do you feel personally? And then, of course, your colleagues, Senator Mwakon has lost out 2 ways, having been the Senate Minority Leader, and then, of course, a senator is not there. And then we have Simon Lalong enjoying the seats right there. How have you been able to handle this, and maybe some of your colleagues too?
Well, I don't think anybody will enjoy anything that is stolen. So anyone that you feel that maybe will want to enjoy any seat that is stolen now, that is not given by the people, that's not the mandate of the people. And because we are still standing on the mandate of the people, and that's why we are still going further.
So you think it's a stolen mandate?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a stolen mandate. From what the Supreme Court has said yesterday, it was a stolen mandate. Absolutely, that's one of the biggest political hests that has ever happened in the history of Nigeria. So we are going to start at the same time look at the doctrine of necessity that will be able to address these issues. The law is the law, and we'll still go through those lenses and look at what doctrine of necessity to be able to restore justice to the people. Because what I feel yesterday was that believing in the hope of the renewed hope that, look, justice have been given to Plateau people. And I don't see anywhere that is going to create crisis, rather it's going to give peace of mind. Because what has happened in the past to stole the mandate of the people, that was crisis. But now to use any doctrine of necessity to be able to see how the mandate of the people will come into being genuinely through their votes, that is the peace of mind, no longer crisis. So we're not going to sleep on this. Still, we look at what those areas of the lenses of the law we're going to look at to see that people get justice, because all of us stand for justice, and we're going to seek justice to see till at the end of the day, we now say that, look, the stolen mandate can be hidden, because definitely I don't see among the people that these appeal court legislators have been given will really come out the people like me. I got my votes with 95,000 from 95,000 people, and I don't know how someone with barely 20-something thousand will go and face the 95,000. Or are you saying that all along that one is it one word out of how many words will face the remaining words? So issues of consciousness, if aware those that have been given this mandate by appeal court, that they should start resigning, because the conscience should give them the mandate that by being affirmed by the Supreme Court yesterday that what they got was not genuine, was wrong, was from the back door. So we urge them through humanity and consciousness that they should start resigning.
Okay, interesting times ahead. Let's talk quickly as we try to round off this conversation, Nanven, about Plateau State and the need for politicians in that state to come together. Considering what's been happening, you've said that, look, the governor should focus on governance and then, of course, see how you can rally everyone together. What should political actors on their own part, I mean, those who are not in government and including those who are in government, what should they be doing to restore peace and bring back sanity to Plateau State?
Well, yeah, I think the disposition of actors goes a long way to impact the people. Many times we're leaders in our own rights, opinion leaders, political leaders, and so on. And many times, even from our commentaries and our body language, it impacts on how the people are disposed to issues of governance. For me, I think the political elites in Plateau must understand that the ultimate goal of politicking is governance. And the purpose or the objective of governance is to impact the lives of the people. And many times this positive impact cannot be done with daggers drawn. And so we must come to a point where politics is terminated at the point where politics ends, and we are able to give ourselves, good counsel as regards how to move the state forward. I believe that as Governor whose issue has been settled, I believe that he would be able to extend the olive branch to many of the other people who have great ideas of how to move the state forward. They say no man is an island. We expect that this winner takes all mentality, which is oftentimes why you see our political space, with so much bitterness, envy, hate, and so on. We must gradually grow above that to realize that everybody has a role to play towards moving the state forward. All right.
Most thank you so much, Nanven. Mamdam is the Secretary of the People's Redemption Party in Plateau State. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Honorable Dachung Bagos, who is joining us from just the Plateau State capital. Most thank you so much. And I think you feel relieved personally because I can see you smiling. And you can sleep much better.
The people of Plateau, the people of Plateau will really see the dividends of democracy. What the governor have done in 6 months, it wasn't done in Plateau State in the past 8 years.
All right.
So you will see what he will do in the next 4 years as well.
All right. We must thank you so much for joining us to help us provide some sort of clarity to all of this.